Hello and welcome everybody to Podcasting for Small Business, the companion podcast to our book, Podcasting for Small Business, the essential blueprint to launch your podcast. I'm Ray Sidney Smith. I'm here with my co-author and co-host, Steve. Steve, how's it going?
Happy to be here, Ray. It's going great.
Fantastic, fantastic. Today we have a bit of fun times to do on the podcast because we have a special guest. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest and bring her on. But we have Elsie Escobar. She is a strategic advisor for high performing veteran creators who have been publishing, podcasting, and leading with their voice for over a decade. She worked at Libsyn for nearly 19 years as Director of Community and Content and has recently been appointed as Creator Success and Community Manager at podcast media host Captivate. And so, welcome to the show, Elsie.
Yay, I'm here. Hopefully I won't drop out and weirdness does not happen. But I'm here. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be with you guys.
Well, we're so excited to have you join us for this conversation. This is a little derivation from what we've been doing on the podcast. So, folks know we have been going through podcasting for small business, kind of chapter by chapter, and talking through the various aspects of what each chapter, kind of behind the scenes and so on and so forth. But what we wanted to do was to just kind of bring you on the show because you have this breadth of experience. And I wanted to help you, have you first kind of tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into creating as a creator in podcasting and just a little bit of that background so folks know your story.
Well, let's see. Shall I go back to my childhood? I'm just kidding. I will not start that
It
far
began in a
back.
log cabin, right?
I know. No. No, I was an actor. I went to school for acting. I have an MFA in acting, and back in the early or late 1990s, in 1997, I graduated and I moved to Hollywood with dreams of fame. And at that time, I started to do a lot of auditioning and a lot of things like that, which was really fun. I actually had an agent and a manager that were working with me, which was really great. But alas, I went in 50,000 million auditions and I had 50,000 million rejections. And almost there's situations where I went up in front of producers, I was up for pilots, I was up for movies, like all kinds of things where I could have totally been famous. But alas, nobody has ever heard of me. I mean, outside of podcasting, maybe. And I was very disappointed. My heart was very sad. I ended up in what I consider to be one of the biggest depressions of my life. Because I've never been a depressive type person, but at that time I started to feel very not happy.
Yeah,
And
down. Yeah.
and s- yeah, and so I found podcasting because I got an iPod video, fifth generation, and I didn't have any digital music at that time. And I figured, like, how in the heck am I going to be able to listen to anything if I didn't have any digital music? And I refused to buy music. And there were these podcast things inside of iTunes. And so I was like, oh, let's try this out. And I was sort of blown away by the fact that I could take what I imagined, taking radio with you, right? That was the first thought. I'm like, oh, I can take the NPR shows that I can't watch, or excuse me, that I can't listen to, when I'm at home. I can take them with me and all that kind of stuff. And then I started to find other podcasts, which were not by the fancy people. And I thought, who are these people that have gotten behind the mic? And I wanted to be just like them. And podcasting gave me essentially the platform to be able to be my creative self. I thought I was going to have a fancy show. I could be like a radio person. Nobody would be able to see me. Nobody would say no to me. And so it created I don't know, freedom for me and my voice.
And so you start podcasting, you are notable for having launched She Podcasts and a conference based on that and so many other things. I know that my history with you is listening to you on The Feed, which was Libsyn's official podcast for all of these years. And you bring such a breadth of background and information. And I'm curious if you could just like for me, my interpretation is that every business owner comes with a set of skills that they've learned through hardship or through education and experience, and they bring that to the business that they're
Mm.
currently in. And it feels like your MFA, your rejection in acting, all of those kinds of things, that experience you brought to bear into who you became as a podcaster in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering if like what were the unique lessons you learned that or maybe skills that you learned in acting that really came like to the surface as you started podcasting?
Yeah, you know what? Interestingly enough, my very first podcast was called Elsie's Yoga Class. You could still find it, by the way. You can go find and hear me. And I think that there's something really lovely about, and also deeply embarrassing about hearing myself 20 years ago first getting behind a mic, right? Because I hear a different person. But to your point, I started a podcast called Elsie's Yoga Class because back in the day when I was doing the acting thing, of course, all the rejection, the sadness, I needed an outlet. And I found yoga during that time because I was working out a lot and I needed to stretch and I heard yoga was great for that. And then I was obsessed. I was obsessed with yoga. I was hyper fixated in it. I started studying. I dove really deeply into it. Of course, I ended up teaching it and I started to build a very strong following in Los Angeles at that time to do this. And during that time, I found the podcast thing. So I wanted to have a show and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm just gonna record my yoga classes to figure out how to do this thing, how to record, how to put it up, how to do all that stuff. I'll do that. I don't have to create a show. I'll just record that. To go all the way back, when you're teaching, you also have to use the same skills, a lot of skill sets that you use when you are at least training and being on stage because you have to take up space, you have to be very clear, you have to project, you have to have a certain charisma when you are taking up that space. And so that really helped me when I was teaching and taking the seat of the teacher. When I started to record, it was the same thing. Intuitively started to hear, I would close my eyes and go, how can I be better? How can I take up space better? How could I be clear with my words, with my language? How could I be of service with a new conduit, which is the mic, versus being on stage? And so it actually forced me in so many different layers, teaching plus the skill set of being an actor allowed me to understand that being in front of the mic is really just another stage. It's just through the voice. And so you have to be very specific about how you use it. So the biggest intuition that I had around that is that you are always acting. You are always using, for me, the tool of the voice to tell stories, to allow yourself to have a different cadence, to go quiet, to go loud, to try the different types of rhythms, to really nail something, to use pauses. So all of those things were intuitively to me because of all of the acting stuff, pacing. So I knew it. I just knew I needed to do that to call attention to the enthusiasm. And you'll see that there are a lot of people left those kinds of messages to me are like, oh, you're really enthusiastic. Yeah, I am. I just happen to do that, right? So there's energy, enthusiasm that comes across, and those are just things that I think were intuitive to me, and I knew that that's how you call attention. I wasn't tactical about that, but I knew that that was a differentiator for me.
And it's funny, because I have a radio background and some of what you're saying is similar to what I have to deal with as someone who was on the radio all those years. But at the same time, I work with a lot of folks who are podcast guests
Uh-huh.
and trying to help them with some of the things that you were talking about. Have you noticed or what let me go back for a second. What kind of tips from what you have experienced can you give to a small business owner who is stepping behind the microphone or stepping behind the microphone as a host or a guest in how to improve their performance from
I
what you
think
have learned?
yeah, I used to this may not be probably the best metaphor, but I used to teach this sometimes, and I think it was because my audience was primarily women at that time. And, I was like, "Well, the microphone is essentially your boyfriend." Because and so you have to treat it as such, not your, like, long-term partner, not the one that you've committed to, but the one that you are dating right now, the one that you want to impress. And so you allow yourself to have a relationship with this inanimate object, and you have to treat it as such in a and you get close to it and you move away from it and you are know where it is because it is actually the thing that's going to take that a message across, right? What I've seen with a lot of folks that don't understand that, they feel like it is in their way, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, like it's like a some kind of obstacle. I often hear, it's too close, I have to move around, I have and there's, like, movement, like, it feels like it's so constricting, and you see it that way, but it's actually not. It is that channel that helps you communicate better, and I think it also requires a lot of respect, which is what a lot of folks, when they're getting into it at first, they don't realize how important and the microphone is to the quality of your message. And once you start to respect the relationship between you and your microphone, it's better for you as a human to convey that with other folks. Um, and to really take it seriously. I think it doesn't matter if it is, especially for business owners, if you think about the things that really matter for business, maybe keeping like a bookkeeper, doing your taxes, understanding your profit and loss. And are those things exciting? I would venture not, unless you're super obsessed with numbers. But most business owners they have to do that, right? They have to because they need to, like, stay in business. But for and they just want to do the work, but you have to have that. And that is kind of what that microphone is. It is as fundamental piece of the puzzle of you reaching audience. So whether you're a guest or whether it's your show, you respect the medium and you respect the conduit of your voice. And in order for you to uplift it, you have to, like, have a relationship with the thing.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we recommend in the book is the idea of using a headphone mic for folks who are
Oh
very
yeah.
animate, because it can really help with not having that kind of weird awkwardness with the
Mhm.
microphone. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to get comfortable with the mic because it becomes an extension of you, becomes an appendage in a lot of ways. Boyfriend, girlfriend, or what have you.
Yeah, yeah.
But it becomes this kind of extension of your work. And I've always been comfortable. I think the three of us have always been comfortable behind the mic. And I come across a lot of folks in business who are not comfortable behind the mic.
Yeah.
And there is a reason for that. Many times it's because they're in a particular community where they are not typically considered the thought leader, right?
Mhm.
There are certainly not as many female podcasters as there are men, and add any other minority, right? And representation becomes less and less in the space. And I know that's a pretty big piece of the work you've done. And so I'm curious about like the genesis of how you make these inclusive, safer spaces for podcasters because I think it's actually really transferable for almost any business owner to think about how to make spaces safer. Because if you can make a space feel safe, you're going to have a better interviewee. If you make a better space, then you're going to have customers who want to be around you, right? Like there's actually a translatable skill there, and you've been able to do that. And I'm curious, kind of, if you have any nuggets of wisdom for folks in that sense.
I think I always like to think about the audience and how to make them feel heard and seen first. And also to understand what their history is something that I really, um, whenever I prepare to have conversations with clients and they're coming from a specific type of industry, I do my very best to learn a little bit. If it's like a industry that I really don't know about, I do go out of my way to learn a little bit more about it. But for the most part, I can kind of go, okay, these are the parallels that they have with podcasting or they have with the skill set that I have. So I tell stories that are memorable to them, that align with them, that are a metaphor that I might use where they can go, okay, so that allows at least for that beginning space. And I'm going to actually go back to I was the metaphor that I was just using about the boyfriend scenario with the mic because that's what I was using early on. That was the metaphor that I was using when I first started in podcasting, where I was very much thinking from a perspective of being a cis woman and having a relationship with the mic in that sense. And as I started to work within podcasting, I started to see that even language like that, where I use that, this is my boyfriend, it automatically kind of puts people that aren't cisgendered or aren't having heteronormative relationships at that time to feel a little like, okay, not that they feel excluded, but it's just a matter of the way that I'm placing something, right? So it has allowed me to do is that it allows me to listen, to pay attention to who's in the room, to use language that is as inclusive as it can be, so that the examples that I use, the way in which I use a turn of phrase is very mindful. And it's not about censorship, it's not about tokenism, it's not about being inclusive to all the people. It literally is a small little detail that you have to have as a leader, as a business owner, if your value system is to help other people feel safe in a space. And you have to really think um, outside of the box, and it's actually your responsibility to do that. It's nobody else's, because just saying that you are a safe space to come in doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually creating a safe space. And that was a big lesson that I learned in leading communities, because sometimes our intentions are such that you go like, everybody's welcome, we're here for all people, and then in reality, you start to go, "Oh, I didn't even think about X, Y, and Z." I didn't even consider people that might have this reaction when they and part of it is, yeah, you learn by taking a choice or making choices, but ultimately it's up to us to really, and that's why having other people to talk to is important, because you can't just decide you're going to change the world or you're going to change the way things go without consulting people who are there or have experienced said thing, or have somebody to go read your copy, read the way that you introduce somebody, consider these options, right? And I think in podcasting, it's way beyond just even human beings. Sometimes it's about um, technology, right? Sometimes we're thinking, well, you can just say like, subscribe to my podcast or follow my show wherever you get your podcast. And there might be somebody that's like, wherever I get my podcast, where would that be? You know what I mean? And so then there are folks that don't have a clue as to what the heck you're saying. And we just take it for granted. And then we go, you can use a podcast app of choice. what's a podcast app? Right? And so it's not that you have to have an entire dissertation and teach people all the time, but you are mindful and you can definitely say something like, "Did you know that there is a built-in podcast app inside of every iPhone? It's called Apple Podcast and it looks like this." And you can just do a little PSA on one episode or maybe in your social channels, and you can follow a bunch of different shows including mine. Like you can do things like that, and that teaches people that don't have a clue, and it also allows people who do have a clue to go, "Oh, that's a really great way to explain that. I'm going to copy that and help somebody else find the show." So that is also being inclusive, being thoughtful about understanding the end experience of the person that is consuming your content.
You're talking to my heart here. But in words and language
Mhm.
really matter.
Yeah.
I have that conversation continually. I work with a lot of business book authors, as Ray knows. A lot of them are academics, and the word choices that matter when they're being interviewed as a guest matters tremendously. The words that they use as an academic are not necessarily the words that were you would use in a conversation with someone who is not your peer, which is
Mhm.
potentially your audience.
Right.
And they're so used to using the words that are on the page, which are not necessarily the words that are needed for the ear. Have to constantly remind them they're two different things. You write for the page, you talk for the ear, and those word choices matter. So I
Oh my gosh,
relate
yeah. And
totally to what you're saying.
yeah, in the it's another thing too is I sent you guys a bio, right? And then you guys got in, read the bio, you talked about the bio. I was I sent you to that bio. I'm going to be on another show next week and or a couple weeks from now, and they asked me for a bio. And I didn't send them the same bio. I sent them a different bio because their audience is not your audience. Your audience understands how like you have to position yourself based on the audience that's there. And there might be some people where I could see like this audience might possibly choose to work with me. There's other places where that audience will never work with me, but they might just want to touch base with me. They might want to get to know me better. And so it's a different sort of positioning every time you do that. And again, it's not you just highlight different parts of whatever that might be, whatever that situation is. And I think that even as a podcast host that is hosting a business for your business, you in every one of the discussions that you might have, if you have an interview show, if you have an even a solo show, when you prepare, you also have a point of view as to how you're doing it. Are you taking the seat of thought leader today? Are you taking the lead on something that you're an expert in and you're really owning it? Or are you there to facilitate a conversation within your industry where you are seen as a conduit or somebody who asks really smart questions? Are you there to be accessible or are you there to be the person that's like on the higher up, right? That you're like the one that everybody looks up to. And you get an opportunity to coat that with almost every episode, unless you really just want to be known for a specific thing. So, one thing that I love about having your own podcast is that you get to position yourself versus other people labeling you as such, right? Because of the way you speak, because of the way you lead interviews or you choose topics, it will teach the audience how to see you in ways that no bio ever could.
True. And the audience always matters because the audience is always going to want to know what's in it for them.
Mhm.
And that's another part. And we talk about this in the book is that you really need And Ray likes to phrase it as voice and value.
Mm.
You need to give your audience both, whether you're a host or a guest, actually. And always remember that the audience comes first no matter what. And just because you may think something is important, the audience may not. And if you only want to say, "Oh gosh, this is what I feel is really important," you may lose your audience very quickly over time if that's not what they're what they're listening to you for. So, Ray, I think you're about to ask a question or add something. So,
Yeah, I kind of wanted to move on in the conversation, in kind of add on to the conversation, in the sense that you're talking about, you, whether you're guesting or hosting, kind of bringing yourself to the table. And I'm really curious from the business perspective, because I've been doing this for many years myself. I know how I feel as a business owner, podcasting as a mechanism for my ultimate goal is always to give information on the podcast. It's really not a sales tool, although I know it is one. And so, how
Mhm.
do you, you know, you've met with so many different business owners who are podcasting. I'm curious how you position that for them, if you have kind of a framework in your mind's eye that helps them understand how to bring voice and value while still understanding that there is a business involved, and that they need to provide value that's going to bring awareness and consideration toward some kind of product or service, without it being a commercial, because your podcast is not a commercial, but it is a reputation builder. And so I'm wondering how you've always positioned it to folks in that sense, or how you've learned to position it to business podcasters.
Yeah, I think, I in working with so many people for so many years, like one thing that I have learned is, every time I have a conversation with somebody, I take copious notes. Like every time that I'm preparing for a report, whatever, I end up like with these copious notes about what I tell them. And then what I end up starting to find out, and this happens every single time, it's kind of how I, not that necessarily that I have like a really clear cut framework, but it seems to go in sort of waves. And this is the conversation that keeps on popping up for the past like year and a half or so. And it came from um, seeing the same issue arise, and especially with folks that are, I guess, selling something. I can't say that we're specifically business owners, but they had something where they were looking to achieve a goal, whether, any kind, product, services, ads, partnerships, like all kinds of stuff. And in doing research to be able to explain such a thing to people, I bumped into this not, it's not a framework. It's, and I'm sure marketing folks might already know this, but this is something that I keep on saying. I cannot give attribution to exactly where I found this, but it is the differentiation between having gardening content and hunting content. And so gardening content is a type of content that you create that is just planting those little seeds. It's like super easy to understand. It's kind of like the stuff that you see on reels or TikToks, or like short form content, or any kind of short form threads or Twitter posts and things like that, where it's like really short, really quickly, something appeals to you and you go, yeah, that's kind of cool. I love her vibe. I That's neat, right? And it's like usually a thumbs up or a heart or a quick share, right? That's gardening content to let people know who you are. It reaches wide. It's easy for you too. It's easy for you. It could be fun. It could be just lighthearted. That's gardening content. That's visibility content. It's the stuff that gets you out. And then there's hunting content. Hunting content's the kind that you literally go, "Hey everybody, I'm going to be doing my mentorship experience at the end of March. So anybody who's interested in working with me, I have a wait list for you. Please sign up. It's link in bio." That is like straight to the point.
what do you
And
find? Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to
yes,
interrupt for a second, if that's
yeah.
okay. So, what are you finding works better?
Oh
And
no.
has that changed, or does any work better than the other?
No, what I find is that most people who are doing their podcast only do gardening content. Like they do like
Mm,
just a lot of or actually gardening, and I have another layer to that, which is thought leadership. And so it's
mm,
gardening, and the thought leadership is like where you position your point of view, right? Where you're talking about what makes you different or your process, your thing. This is how I work with people. This is my special sauce that I bring to the table. And that really inspires them too. And so those two are what they focus on, gardening and thought leadership. They're really good at that. Hunting, don't even add it. They don't even focus on it. Makes them feel weird. Makes them feel like I don't even know how to do it. And so it's not even added to the mix. And so it's a mixture of all of this. So you plan gardening content, you plan thought leadership content, and you plan hunting content. So if you have something that you're going to be launching in March, you have to have some kind of tier, some kind of vertical of hunting content that you're adding. Oh, I don't know. However, you whatever your sales cycle is, I don't know. Everybody's business is different, so I don't know what that might be. But you have to do that, and then once you sell the thing, you kind of can go away. You can go back to doing your gardening content. You can go back to doing just straight up thought leadership, and then when you start to do the push again for the hunting stuff that you have to put in there, it goes out. That's part of the content building plan, and you have to build it within your podcast. So don't have to do all three every single episode. Sometimes you are going to go hard on hunting stuff. Maybe you're going to be interviewing all of your clients for like the month of May. And all of that is to sell your one on ones. Great. Then you're done. Then you continue and pivot a little bit more. Or but you have to be very tactical at being able to do that. And a lot of small businesses don't see the difference between them or just focus on one thing. And you wouldn't do that if you're selling products. Like if you're selling physical products, you know when you have to start selling for the holidays. You've got a sales cycle. You understand what you need, and you understand how many emails need to go out, how many, I don't know, coupons you're going to be putting out, what you're going to be doing for your Thanksgiving sale. You know that. You got to do that if you're doing that stuff. And why don't we do that in the podcast? I don't understand it.
And
So,
I was going to say that gets back to something that Ray you said a moment ago, and that you were concerned. Like, how do you do that? For lack of what you were saying in terms of hunting, how do you do episodes along those lines without making it seem so much like a commercial for your business, which may turn people off?
yeah, it is that's where you have to bring your reality, like meaning your real experience to all of that stuff. There's a lot of folks who do this. Like I'm going to shout her out because I think she does a really fantastic job at she names what I'm saying in a different way, but oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, it's called the Get Paid podcast. Claire Pels. Um, and she is a Facebook ads expert. She has sales cycles. She has the way that she makes money. She discloses it within the show. It's kind of built into the show, so it's probably easier for her to do it. What is really cool is that she definitely talks about how her sales cycle went. She talks about how her Facebook ads are performing to sell her courses. So she will talk about how her marketing worked to sell her course and what worked and what didn't work. And then you become curious, going, what is her course? Let me see what that course is that she is talking about. And then so she will talk about and she'll say, well, this is my funnel for this is this because it is that it's a less expensive, if you will. And then this is the high end because this is like at least like $10,000 or something like that for this. And it's a year thing. So that I know that in order for me to sell that, I need XYZ. And so you kind of start to go, she has a $10,000 situation happening, but it starts to drop curiosity. It's not pushing me away. It's making me go, huh, Who knew? Like, what does she get? And then she will talk about it within the show. She'll have interviews where she'll talk about very specific things. But actually, what I want you to know, if for anybody who is curious, actually, to listen to her podcast, she uses her, she has little ads that she will use very tactically and very well crafted in her show, where she will absolutely want. There is no way you can listen to her podcast and not understand what her business is. Like, it's never not clear. Like, it's not all of a sudden, oh my God, she's being so sleazy selling me this. No, no, no. This is her business. This is a podcast. This is how she makes money. There's no right? So I
Mhm.
think that that salesy part, it's we have to take away that thing. Like, in all honesty, every single one of us have to understand what it takes to sell. And it is something that I've been sitting back and watching people in the podcasting space in every part, not just independent podcasters, but there is this lack of skill sets on what it takes to sell, and nobody wants to do it. And
And
everybody has the expectation to make all the money, but they
uh,
don't sell.
so I'm glad you're saying it, Elsie, because
Okay.
it is, Steve and I, when we were working on this part of the book, Steve was just so concerned about, rightfully so, about someone getting on a podcast and just being just salesy and just turning an
Yeah,
entire
yeah.
podcast into sales. Except that you and I both know, having worked with business after business, countless businesses over the years, most of them are afraid of sales. They're afraid of telling people who they are. They're afraid of telling people what they do and what products and services they provide. And so I've always couched it in kind of three different parts. And this came from blogging, which was that
Mhm.
I, when blogging was kind of had its heyday, which I still think blogs are an absolutely important part of digital marketing. But the idea was that if you put out a blog post, you should insert ads about your business in your own blog posts, just like people did
Mhm.
ads in in other blogs. You should, if your blog is getting visibility, your call to action doesn't need to be buy from me. It could be any number of things. But if you're inserting ads into your own blog post, you are separating editorial from advertising in the way that normal publications do. And it would just seem so natural to me that you would do that. I was doing it for my own blog posts, and so it was working. And so I started showing clients how to do that, and they saw success in that. And so I thought to myself, well, why aren't people doing that in podcasts? And so this whole notion of basically having an ad spot that you would normally sell to somebody else, but in a business, you're trying to sell your own products and services. So add your own ads in there. And as you noted about the Get Paid podcast, it is clear this is a sales moment, right? Everything else is voice and value. Now this is voice and sales. And just make people aware of that. And it's very easy. The other part is that every podcast should start with who you are, what type of authority you bring to the table, and what is the product or service that you provide. It doesn't have to be so rote. It doesn't have to be the same every time, but people should get an understanding of who you are before they listen to your podcast. Something else that I'm really curious if you've seen this before, but it's something that I've done over the years. I had a podcast for a very long time called Prod Pod. It was a podcast of productivity lessons in 2 minutes or less. And so, and I'm a fast speaker, so you can only imagine the non-English
Oh my
speakers
God.
who would write back to me about how fast I was. And so lots of email templates explaining to them how to slow the audio down. And but because it was only 2 minutes, I never wanted to put kind of ads into it. I never wanted to talk about myself. I never really wanted, it was a very, very short thing. So I decided to add separate audio files into the feed whenever I had something. So if I was teaching a course, or if I had an upcoming conference or had an upcoming meetup, I would just add another file that was me telling people about that thing in the feed. And then when I was done with it, I just took it back out after the event had happened. Of course, you could leave them in permanently as ads, but it was clearly labeled for people that this was not an episode and that it was telling them about something. And I was curious if you've seen that before, and if whatever thoughts you had on that.
Oh, totally, absolutely. And again, going back to Claire, just because she's top of mind right now, just because I've been doing deep diving back into Facebook, in the Facebook ads land, and she's the person that I go to for that. And she will do stuff like that where she will, like in the feed, she will like she'll do like a webinar where she is selling her course, like a regular like that what everybody does to bring people in, and then you make a pitch and blah blah blah. But she'll just like after she does her webinar, she just release it as an episode. Like she'll just put it on the feed. And then I don't know if she keeps that stuff in there. I haven't like really done a deep dive in her actual RSS feed. What I do is I have a private podcast for my mentorship experience people. And so what happens is when they work with me in the mentorship experience, they get access to this private podcast. And then what happens is, and they go away because usually I would do it 2 times a year. And then I kind of forget about it. Sometimes I'll do it once a year and I totally forget about it. But when I'm going to relaunch it, I'll record an episode and I'll put it on the feed. They're all going to get it. All my people are going to get it because they can do it again. They can do the mentorship again. And then it's like I say this podcast will self-destruct because you can actually put it in there and say like you could take it out of the feed. Like in a lot of podcast hosts, you could just do that and have it expire in quote. And so it'll just go away from the feed. And that's a super simple way to do it. I was just advising somebody because this is another thing that's happened in the past. And I don't know if you guys have talked to your clients about this, but there's a lot of people who are simply done with their podcast, not because it's failed, not because of anything, but because they're really just done, right? But they've invested many years, a lot of labor, of time, resources, and they have a plethora of incredible archive of their knowledge. But they're done. They don't want anymore. So how do they optimize that? So some of the advice that I've been doing is around putting out like a trailer episode where the trailer episode now outlines things like, hey, this podcast is no longer being produced, blah, 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 blah. Listen, this is where you can find me now, blah, 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 blah. And then and then you can have that be part of your trailer when you go to Spotify or Apple Podcast. It could be like right at the top so people can listen immediately and find out where you are now, but still say, hey, my podcast is evergreen. You can still find all of this information and just make it do that. You could totally do stuff like that. Be very tactical about the last episode that you're going to be putting on your feed because that's the one that everybody's going to download from the beginning. If you're closing it down, you have to be very specific about those links, where they're going to go, right? So you can definitely optimize that because to me, a podcast can be a thing. It can be a show, right? It can be its own thing, but it also could be a channel. And a lot of people, the delivery mechanism is like that. It's like there's a podcast, there's a newsletter, there's your social, there's your, live events. Like you can have all these different channels. And sometimes the show is over, but the channel still there. So why not use the channel to get that information out? And so, yes, absolutely right. I think it is like super intuitive and it's like, why not? Who says you only can publish exactly the show that you created? Like you did it. It's yours.
Multi-purpose it.
I know.
As many ways as you can.
Totally. And now it's so funny because now what I'm finding more and more when I do a lot of research on people's feeds on all this stuff, because I'm so curious all the time. And whenever I find somebody, I try to find everything about them. Is so many podcasts have been around for like, over a decade. And then I start to look at their feeds and I'm like, oh, this was 5 separate shows. In the past 10 years, this feed has been 5 different shows from the same producer, and they've rebranded yet again. And so you can see it on their feed. I don't care. I mean, I'm just I just found them. I will just listen to these podcast episodes. These are amazing. Why not use the feed and just switch things around? Like, what's the big deal? At least to me, I don't see a big deal with that at all.
No, but I really like the idea of using that final download to lead people to another location. I've
Yeah.
not done that with my prior podcasts, and now I know that I have some work to do
Trailer
because
Yeah.
coming up. I sense a trailer.
Well, no, just yeah, yeah. Basically, it's a segue episode, right? Like this is now where I am, as opposed to what I was doing. I forget how many. I mean, I was getting tens of thousands of episodes on the Prod Pod a day for years, and I did nothing with it. I just was just happy to share the information, and so and
Oh,
for this is 2018 was my last episode, and so since 2018, about once a week, I think I should really bring back Prod Pod.
no, it's true,
Just,
and I think, but
you know?
with the trailer of it all, I think that there's some delineations that could be like a small step to put that stuff out there, because yeah, I think that there, because when you publish that trailer, what I've wanted to do too is that when you publish a trailer, I would say publish the trailer and post date it. Is that the right saying post date it? Post date it to like months before, or like 6 months before, something like that, so that that trailer doesn't show up on your feed. Because if you just release a trailer and you just put it out as a trailer, Spotify and Apple Podcast will rightfully, because of the tagging, put it as a trailer, which is cool. But other podcast hosting platforms, whether it's, Overcast, Pocket Cast, or whatever, they might not have the trailer tag. So what's going to happen is that trailer is going to be the last episode that people get, and it's going to push it to their devices. And they're going to look and go, "What is this?"
Right.
Right? And so if you post date it, it's gonna go either way back on their feed and they won't pay attention to it, which you kind of don't want it to anyway. It's just a trailer. But it's going to still be delineated appropriately in those platforms. So those are just things that you have to always think, again, talking about the audience. What is the audience going to do? What's going to happen with them? Am I going to alienate them, or am I going to give them a little bit more, like to get more curious about the stuff that I have in here?
Yeah, and what the one thing that I don't like is, and I guess it's probably beneficial in this particular case, but for general purposes, Apple Podcasts basically unfollows a podcast after some period of time of it not publishing, and
Yeah.
so there's that kind of auto soft unfollow. In essence, you don't get the notification for it, even though I think you still follow them, you just don't get the notification. But I think it's kind of like it's like rude in my book. I'm like, Apple, why are you doing that to us? Some
Oh
some
my
of us
god, that's
don't publish
hilarious.
every day, so
Yeah.
but it's extended. It's a number of months before they do it, but I still think that they should probably not do that. I want to, unless Steve has anything burning, I want in our time remaining to talk technology. And
Okay.
I'm sure Steve will have questions as well for you about this. But we are constantly hearing artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence today. And I'm curious where you've been playing. I know that you are a tech geek. You love the technology as much as I do. Probably, maybe we can battle it out.
Yeah,
Who
we can
loves
battle it
technology?
out.
But where are you finding yourself being drawn to in terms of where AI can help in podcasting? Where do you feel like people should maybe avoid for now because it's not providing as much value? And yeah, let's start there, and then we can kind of chat about it.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful, especially when you have a framework. I think it's incredibly helpful to be able to get things like show notes done, stuff like show notes or summaries. It's really wonderful for as an archive reference. Like, it's beyond, it was everything I've been always hoping for especially for a show like The Feed. It's like, I remember very specifically, there were back in the day for Mac Power users, was it? No, it was another one of automators from the Relay network, where they did a lot of automation things, and it was really in depth, and they stopped producing the show, but one of the audience members created this extraordinary wiki of every single automation that they did. The audience, like one of their people created that, which was like mind blowing. It was like an entire Obsidian database for people
Yeah.
to be able to find that. And I was like, oh my God, right? I mean, I'm sure there was some automation or AI involved in that, but for the most part, that was just like a tech dude who was just like, "Hey, we want this resource," right? And he gave it to them. So that's really cool. But nowadays, that's kind of what I wanted for the feed. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do it? So, in terms of like using a tool, like to me, something like that, like something like Notebook LM is basic and so amazing to be able to just grab the transcripts off of this, stick it into a notebook, and be able to search, like, when did Rob and Elsie talk about blah, 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 blah. And it'll just pop up all the stuff. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Like reference for my own stuff,
Mhm.
just I can't even say. Like I'm so blown away by that. Where I feel it fails is when you're using it to ideate all the things for you, where you don't know exactly who you are yet, where you don't have the basic understanding of what you're building. It's if you don't know how to cook and you're using AI to with a recipe and it gives you a recipe and you start cooking the recipe and the recipe's fine and you make it and you eat it and you're like, this is gross. If you don't know that you don't like that kind of food, it doesn't matter what the recipe is good or not. That recipe might be great for another family, but not for ours. But if you don't know what your family likes, you won't know to say no, right? Like as a mom, I know what all my kids like to eat, what my husband likes to eat, and I'm like, "Oh God, this is gonna, it's gonna be great for these people. It's not gonna be great for that person. We could just, and I can then ask all of these questions and then come up with something that's going to benefit the majority, right? It
Right,
doesn't have
right,
anything to do with the actual recipe. It doesn't have
right,
to do with how fast I get the recipe or how many recipes I can get. I need to have the intrinsic understanding of the relationships with my family, their palates, what time of day it is, how they're feeling, who's doing what, there's all of this contextual information that the AI doesn't have.
right, right.
And
True.
I'm the one that's going to go, maybe that recipe is great, but I need to add a little bit of salt, or I need to have an avocado in there somewhere,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what, and if you don't know what that is, if you don't have a point of view, if you don't have a sense of understanding of what you want to put in the world, AI is going to help, but it's not going to help you get to creating something that's yours.
Right. I try to liken. I teach AI at several small business development centers, and for small business owners, right, to really understand the
Mhm.
contextual usage of generative AI. And it's so funny because I tend to analogize generative artificial intelligence, like a ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, Google Gemini, as having a million interns available to you. And it doesn't matter if that intern has a high school degree, a college degree, a master's degree, or a PhD. They're still an intern, which means that they are there to gain experience, which means they do not have experience. They have some knowledge. They may have a lot of knowledge, but they lack experience. They also do not have something that only humans could have, which is taste. They don't have style. All right. And so you can work with AI, but you have to know its limitation in that sense, right? Taste is something that comes from experience. It comes from being a human, and it is subjective. And that subjective quality comes from you. If you don't imbue that into the conversation with the chatbot, you're not going to get a very good response. And that's where a recipe may end up being, countersuited for the audience that's eating. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think we have a lot of opportunity with the usage of AI, being able to be utilized here in many ways in podcasts. It's one of the reasons why I relented to Steve's suggestion that we added a chapter to the book at the very end of writing the book. He said, I think we're going to have to add something about AI, and we went through it, and we decided chapter 11 needed to be in there to help people contextualize really AI as an assistant, AI as a tool, and how to help people contextualize that. But I think you're absolutely right. I think AI has a strong place. Are there any specific tools? Like I'm really fascinated with Descript. Descript
Mm.
has been doing lots and lots of fascinating things with regard to it. I don't use it as my primary tool, but I have been playing around with it a lot just to see how it's working. And the way in which they've been able to manifest the AI features just seem natural. It seems just purpose built for podcast editing. And I'm wondering if there's any other tools that you've been playing around with that you've liked more than others.
You know what's really interesting is that I've been really noting and wanting to have a tool, and this is not, I don't think that this exists at the moment, but
Try me, try me.
Ray may know.
I know Ray may know. It is a tool that makes the production process of a podcast, like that has the audio at center in the same way that the like edits app for Instagram really
Mm,
puts creation of short form video at the front forefront because they have really thought out that tool. I'm not a TikTok person, so maybe TikTok has the same thing, but I've never played with that app. I have zero interest on TikTok, but I do play very much with Instagram, and the edits app that Meta created is quite I'm super digging it because they have the ability for it to do all kinds of things that a, a creator needs. And so it's moving from that perspective of it's provided what do you call it? A teleprompter. It's built in.
mm,
You can remove the background and just add a bunch of stuff in the background. They have that as built in too. They have a little timer of how long everything is going to take, because everything's like a minute or whatever. You get cut off in a lot of different apps. Like they have a timer thing there that
mhm,
you can definitely have in there. They have audio boost in it. They have remove silence with one tap. They have the ability for you to have overlays, like and capture. And I'm blown away by how that little screen. You're able to create something so polished with that. And if they could center audio, and it's not the micro, it's not the app, it's the way that um phones are created where the audio accessing the audio to pick where the audio is coming from is just not an easy thing. You can't do that on, at
mhm.
least that I could sell. It's like per app and not all apps have it, and it's a whole complicated situation. So I don't think it's just accessible that way. But the fact that they've made the ability to create video so fast by the use of AI in the background and not have that functionality so fast for DAWs on a computer, it's mind blowing to me. It's mind
Mhm.
blowing because then you
Yeah.
do have things like Descript, but I get that. But the fact that you don't have that, like I just want to get my piece of audio, and I know that there's Adobe Podcaster, I know all those things, but I want a downloaded DAW that's basic, where it
Mhm.
comes on my computer. I upload my audio, it automatically levels it to -15, -16 dB. I can tap, tap, tap to remove silences at my thing, and it does noise reduction and boosts it. Boom, the end. Let's go. Like
Mm.
I'm not there to create a narrative podcast. I'm not there to add overlays and music and all that. Like I think there's a different tool for that. All of that. I want quick and dirty, top-notch content, understand how to set up my mic. I know how to get the top audio from the get go, put it in there, boom, out. Almost the edit is enough. That's what I want. I don't know where that exists at this point.
Well, I am gonna start vibe coding a tool for you, Elsie.
He
And I
may.
want it, and mind you, I want it local because that's the other thing. Alphonic does things like this. Time Bolt, a great tool as well. I really like Time Bolt. It centers video though, and it's tough because I've tried to do the audio piece of it, and it just doesn't do exactly what I want it to do. It does a little too the audio production or processing is too heavy-handed, and I don't want it to be that heavy-handed. And and it is local, but I do want, to me, the ultimate almost for the leveling part Nobody gets the leveling, you guys. Nobody
Yeah.
gets the
Yeah.
leveling. It's killing me. Auphonic Desktop used to
Okay.
do it for me. It used to do it for me, but they no longer support that app. They don't it's not even I can't even use it anymore because it doesn't support the latest OSs and a lot of the Mac stuff. That was my app. That was the app because I would get so many pieces of audio, like, for the feed. When I was editing the feed, I would
Uh-huh.
get 50 million on voice feedbacks, Rob's audio, my audio, their audio, the promo audio. So I would just process all of that independent audio within Auphonic. It would shoot, and it was all local on my computer. I wasn't uploading things, downloading things. It would just like spit it out, and then I put it together into like thing, and everything was leveled. Now it's like, oh, what am I gonna do?
Just
So,
Hindenburg Pro
yeah,
level stuff for you.
just just levels it.
Well, no, it does more, but
Well, no,
but
but
that's
what
one of
I'm,
the things
but
that
that's what it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it automatically actually you put audio in there, it'll automatically level it for you.
Oh, very interesting. I have Hindenburg. I think that part of it is sometimes I just want like drag and drop export. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the more
Yeah.
complicated, and I love Hindenburg. I love the Hindenburg people. Nick, shout out to you. But I am a little overwhelmed with Hindenburg's whole situation, and I do think it's amazing, but it's a little too much for what I want. Like, I want
Mhm.
quick like, my favorite DAW is Amadeus Pro. Do you guys know
Yeah.
what that is?
Mhm.
I've heard of it,
It
I
to
don't
me,
use it.
it's so simple. I love it so much. It's so simple. And I mean, like, I love it so much, but it's the visual component to when you were talking about the descript of it all, I find the use of words and the use of the visual waveform to be that pair is everything. And that would be also really, really helpful. But now, like, if I can't see a waveform, it kinda puts me off because 'cause I'm like, I know what my words look like. It's like that's another. I know just by looking at a waveform whether it's leveled
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
and you won't know that if you don't keep opening this stuff up, right? You can definitely go like, "Oh, I'm gonna need to level this," without having to press play. You just know.
Mhm.
So, stuff like that. Yeah.
One thing to look at is, Alitu, and see if
Ali too,
Alitu.
yeah.
Yeah, they I mean, other than the fact that it's not a mobile application, I think
Yeah.
it's web-based and there's no desktop version, I
Mhm.
think. But, I think they do a lot of what you are asking
Hmm.
in the application. That's a just a, from just reviewing their site. I've not used it, so I can't
Yeah.
speak, but it's worth,
Good to
giving it a
know.
trial, to see if it does what you're looking for it to do. It looks like they've got a 50% off their first month link on their website. But I think Alitu, because we mentioned it in the book, and I think it does a lot of what you're talking about in that sense. Um, but yeah, so any other final thoughts or comments before we start to wrap up here?
Oh
Were
my
there any other
gosh.
techie things that you wanted to mention before
What are the
we
other techie
wrap
things?
up?
I know I'm trying to like figure out like there's so many to like I always like to buy all this. I think you know what it is. I think one last thing it would be that I would love to not want any business owners to feel defeated if they don't have all the resources to add all of the fancy tools from the get-go because it's a lot, and a lot of the video like, there's a ton of incredible creators who are teaching other creators about tech and about workflows and about what cameras to use and what microphones to use and what lights to use and all of the things, which is fantastic. I Yes. But I think one thing that I don't see very much, and it's like it's the part of me that really wants to like hit my head against the wall, is that a lot of folks don't really address space, actual physical space. And even if you have the appropriate tools, and you still need, there is m- there is space you need underneath you, square footage, in order for you to fit all of those things into your area. And there are also some of us who don't even have back areas like this wall here, y'all. This is the only wall in my entire house that I have that has no window or weird holes or plugs or stains on it. Okay. This is it, outside of my hallway. So if you say to me, oh, go in a different place, no, there is no place. This is it. This is it. So, and there's no room. Like I'm standing, like, I'm like this, dink and dink and dink, there's no space. And so I start to see all these people with like all their monitors and all the stand-up things and all the cameras. And I'm like, you guys, I would look, it's scary what I look like right now. I mean, right now you see me, it looks nice, but this is it. This is literally the much space I have. And so no, I don't have the ability to have a desk with, who has that? I'm sorry, you guys, I'm going to go on a tangent here. Who has the ability to sit in front of a computer and have the beautiful camera, and then feet that go all the way to the back of the room with just nothing? You actually have an entire room in your house that has no use case other than just you. That's like a huge privilege that I don't have. If I had another room, it would be full of other things that my family needs. Like I wouldn't be able to have a shelf unit with cute things. It would just be full of actual stuff that I need from the shelf. You know?
So you're saying that all podcasters should be empty nesters, is what you're telling me.
Hey,
Yeah.
why not?
I mean, seriously, I'm like, who has that much space behind?
It's crazy.
Good
It's
Lord.
crazy.
Anyway,
Great.
yes.
And to my left, I have two windows, and I have towels covering my windows because this is the only space I have to do this. Now, as
Yes, see?
I do have
It's
my, but other recording I do literally in a walk-in closet filled with clothes.
Off
Be
yeah,
camera.
off
off
camera,
camera.
but
Well,
because I
yeah,
had to be
I know,
on
because you got,
camera.
I didn't like you like
Yeah,
back in the,
yeah. This
for
is the only
real.
space I have. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
feel you.
It's like people don't talk about that stuff, and it drives me crazy. One last thing, just to disclose to people our situation, you guys might as well let them know. We had previously had a date to record the show, but I had a complete fail on my internet. Okay. It sucks. It sucked. It was horrific. I couldn't even get speeds to upload the stuff. It was a complete fail. There was literally no way we could do it. Um, guess what the solve was, you guys? I'm just letting everybody know. It was the blackout curtains that I had on my walls, on my windows in this room, and then my living room, because there was a big freeze and weather. We had weather in North Carolina. It was really bad, and we don't have, and we were gonna we the possibility of losing power was a thing, and we needed to keep as much heat in the house, right? I hadn't been doing any kind of production work like this at all. And so I didn't remove them because we still are in wintertime. And I was like, oh, this is actually working. It's kind of dark. I like waking up in the dark, right? Turns out that Wi-Fi signals bounce. And because it was dampening the bouncing, because I can't, again, the router is in like two rooms that way. And I hadn't had a long cord. I get it, people. Um, but I was just using, and it hadn't been a problem for the last 5 years. Turns out that the Wi-Fi travels through windows and it bounces off windows, and voila, that was the solve.
Well, we
So
we figured it out. We
now
figured
you
it
know.
out. You're here. We have you. We're so glad to have had you join us. And for folks who want to stay in touch with you, Elsie, how can they gain access to you? We'll be happy to put any links to your you and whatever in the show notes. But for folks who want to follow along with what you're doing and all that jazz, how can they be in touch with you?
Actually, if you this is the thing that I've been like really planning for, and I didn't do it, and I haven't done it. Okay, you can go to lc.link
Okay.
slash mm lc.link/mm, and that is my new fledgling media business where I'll be putting some at some point some newsletter situations, blog post insights, and I am going to be launching a private um, podcast that is free for everybody. It's a free private podcast, and it is going to be talking about the creator, basically aimed at creators to really dive into what it really takes to um, do this thing now
Hmm.
versus any other time before. And of course, yeah, it's going to center podcasting a lot for sure. But that is going to be sort of like my podcast about podcasting from my point of view. And then I will be co hosting, I believe it's called In and Around Podcasting with Rob Walsh for Captivate also. So we're going to be picking up where we left off ish. I don't know yet. We're still figuring that one out, but that's going to be happening there. So that'll be a little bit more, again, talking to podcasters. But that website does have I'm building things out in that. That's where I plan my future home to be, and you'll get a lot of insight from that.
And
Well, by the
just to make sure people know the spelling of your name, it's
Oh yeah,
Elsie. Just want to make sure that's
correct.
clear.
Yeah, we'll put
Yes.
links to all of this in the show notes. And by the time this airs, those of you who are listening, it is likely that all of this has now come to pass, that the Captivate podcast will be live
Oh, oh,
and
oh, yes.
all that fun stuff. So fantastic. Elsie Escobar, thank you so much for joining us here
You
on a
bet.
companion podcast to the Podcasting for Small Business book.
I am so excited, you guys. Go get them. Go get them. And everybody, if you hear this and you don't have the book, what are you even doing? You'll have to buy it. Buy the book.
Thank you, Elsie. Really, so appreciate you.
You bet.
All right, Steve, that leaves the two of us to close out this episode. We're going to be back to our normal format after this, or maybe this is the end of the actual series. I'm not quite sure.
Might
But
be the
wherever we
end.
are,
Who
wherever we
knows?
are, I just want to wish everybody a happy podcasting journey. And if there's an episode to come, then we'll talk to you next time. If this is the last time you're hearing our voice, I'm going to have cut this out and I will have given a whole new ending to this, so you won't even notice. But we will see you next time for Podcasting for Small Business, our companion podcast. Thank you, Steve, for joining me here. And so that's Steve or myself, Ray Sidney Smith. Take care, everybody.